What's up everybody, how's it going? It's Burke, aka Dansgwait here, and I am back for a one-off Elden Ring video, because there has been a question that has been on my mind for a very long time, and that is, does muscle memory truly exist for these types of games, for someone who is basically a casual player and who's only played through the game in its entirety one time, has only ever beaten Malenia without summoning one time, and has taken a year off the game to spend hundreds of hours playing other things. So I'm going to come back to Elden Ring and see if I can defeat Malenia without summoning for a second time. But as you can see here, as I'm literally just trying to remember the buttons again, I had this save from last year where this was before I fought Malenia in a New Game Plus. And if I say New Game Plus, you're going to say, but you played through twice then. This one I basically just followed like a glitch kind of guide online to get to Malenia as quickly as possible, and so I basically didn't really fight anything, and I had pretty much the same level as when I completed my first run. So this is New Game Plus Malenia, and I set myself the task of literally just firing up this save, no practice, no nothing, completely cold start, and seeing what the hell would happen if I started to face Malenia under these conditions. So let's see how this went. Place your bets now. Will I be able to defeat her? And if I do, how many attempts will it take? Let's see if muscle memory is going to be enough to get me through this, and see if I'll be able to defeat her in any kind of reasonable amount of time from such a cold start. So the first attempt is a bit harsh because she starts basically by zooming in, and I wasn't ready for that. So immediately I take two massive hits as I'm trying to even just sort of remember what the hell to do in this fight. But because I fought her so many times last summer, I'm hoping that the muscle memory is going to kick in, and within a few attempts I should start to find my feet again. So let's see how long I survive my first attempt, and then I'm going to obviously start to show you just highlights and rattle through them to see how this thing ended and how quickly I was able to defeat her. So yeah, first attempt as expected was atrocious, basically got nowhere in the battle. Attempt number 2, soon after, you can see I'm literally jumping at the fog gate because obviously instinctively I'm still pressing X to go through. X is usually a progress button in many games, and it was in the last game I played. So now this is the same setup basically as I've always defeated Malenia with, using the Blasphemy Blade. So my build is the same. I did make some like talisman and equipment adjustments in terms of my armor and stuff, just based on what I know generally of the game at this stage, but the setup is the same. So whatever skill level or like, you know, reflexes and stuff it required me to beat her last time is pretty much going to be the same this time around. This attempt, you can see things are starting to shape up a little bit better here. It's starting to come back to me already. So this was surprisingly fast. Honestly, I started to feel a lot more comfortable already within literally just 2 attempts here. So if you're wondering, is muscle memory a thing even for casual players who have taken a year off, it seems to be the case that it is. So you can see me dallying around here and trying to bait this waterfowl dance, which is something I basically learned to do last summer. But what I forgot was that the third flurry, pretty much no matter how far away you are to start, will get you. So you've got to dodge that. But way better progress already compared to my first attempt. Definitely started to feel a little bit more confident, but this obviously always shakes your confidence a little bit. Absolutely brutal. So let's crack on with more attempts here. Attempt number 3, you can already see her HP is down to about 25%, 20% here. So the first form especially, because it's so forgiving compared to the second form, it didn't take me too long before I started to really get more comfortable. So waterfowl here, you can see I didn't go far away enough and I got absolutely destroyed. But you can see once again half health, so I'm not having these attempts where I only do like 10-20% and I immediately die. In the first form especially, I definitely remember that if you don't get too greedy and you keep your distance, it's generally not too bad. So first flurry dodged, second flurry here, and almost completely no damage on the waterfowl. And that's just memory. There's no other way that I can dodge waterfowl dance that easily. If you look back on my first ever run in my blind playthrough, waterfowl dance basically was impossible to dodge. Now all of that said, this waterfowl dance I did screw up pretty badly. So obviously that wasn't my greatest moment. And so even on the next attempt, once again down to about 25-20% HP level, and you can see the consistency. I mean, I'm not exactly beating her at this point, but I'm definitely getting consistently decent attempts, so it was looking promising. And before long, I made it to the second form for the first time. So here's another waterfowl. And you can see the dodging here is so much better. Like, even last summer, this was basically, I got to the same level of waterfowl dodging within 5 attempts, I would say, of getting back into it after a year off. So yeah, the muscle memory is undeniably there from last year, which was really cool to see. I've never done a test of this type in any game I've played before, so for me this was really fascinating to see how I would perform. But the second form is where you sort the men from the boys, because she just goes absolutely sicko mode. But thankfully I was always fortunate that this build worked pretty well against her second form, because when she does this particular attack, I've got the range to do lots of damage to her from far away. So I didn't dodge it well enough because obviously, you know, I needed a bit more practice with it after so much time off. But that was the one advantage I did have in the second form. Waterfowl. Dodge the first set, dodge the second set, and dodge the third set. So I was doing really well here. But you can see the Crimson Tears, I've only got 2 left, so it's already looking extremely unlikely that I would get a win here. But this was all kind of confidence boosting for me at this stage. This was looking good, but this particular attack is just nasty. I managed to avoid them all, which again I was pretty much surprised by at this point. Like, look at this progress. This is only attempt number 7 or 8. I was super stoked about this attempt, I have to say. So from here on, I was locked in, and I was thinking, yes, like, I will be able to defeat Malenia. Now I wanted to do it as quickly as I could. Basically, can I defeat her more quickly than I could in my attempts last summer? So that was literally 6 or 7 hours worth. At this point, I'd played maybe like 20 minutes, half an hour or something. And so I was thinking, surely now I should be able to defeat her even more quickly, despite taking a year off from the game. And basically going straight back into Malenia, because if I did the whole game in the build-up to her first, it would have been a different story. It would have been even easier. But I wanted to really just go in cold turkey and see what would happen. So yeah, I died there. And then the very next attempt, again, I got relatively close to beating the first form, so it wasn't like a horrific attempt. Then I had the classic shit attempt after a really good one. Normally, this is what I would have expected to happen after my first really good attempt, but it was delayed by 1. So yeah, that was definitely very bad. One of the worst attempts of the entire run, to be honest. But then in my next attempt, I was doing a lot better. So I got to the second form once again, and look at the number of Crimson Tears that I have. She's almost down to half again, and I've got 8 Crimson Tears here. But then this move came again, so I dodged it once in the previous run, but here I got a little bit boxed in, and I got completely wrecked. So this attempt I was annoyed by, because I still had 8 Crimson Tears, and I messed up. Then was a quick death. Then back to Form 2 once again. So you can already see the consistency, but this attack was getting the better of me here. I just about survived, but I took the risk, and it did not pay off. But the waterfowl dance always remains a problem for me, as you can see. Then it was another bad attempt here, one of the absolute worst. And got wrecked once more. So despite my really kind of good run on the 6th or 7th attempt, I was having a bad streak, and things were starting to stretch out again. This was kind of like that intermediate losing hope a little bit stage once again. So I quickly realized that if I want to win, I've got to come into the second form with a lot of Crimson Tears. Otherwise, you're just going to drain them out, because I'm just not good enough at the second form. But these attempts already were looking a lot more like my attempts from last summer. So in that sense, what took me maybe 3 or 4 hours last summer, it only took me maybe half an hour to 45 minutes this time around, which really surprised me. This was my best non-winning attempt you're watching here, and this was one of the things that ended up being a major problem. Even though I had the Crimson Tears, I ran out of Cerulean Tears, and that meant that for me, training wheels were off because I couldn't use Taker's Flame. And without Taker's Flame, I had to go much closer and fight much harder, and well, you saw what happened. So that was an adjustment that I needed to make in order to win, and that was the final piece of the puzzle, I think, for me, because that way I could rely a lot more on Taker's Flame. So the final thing I did before I won was to give myself the lower FP talisman and this particular hat, I forgot what it was called, but this one gives me more FP. So with this, I sacrificed my Alexander shard, so I did 15% less damage per Taker's Flame. But because I had the talisman that reduces FP cost and the big hat, then I could use 7 Taker's Flames with 1 FP bar. And so with that, I knew that I had enough Taker's Flames to last the entire battle, and I could spam it a lot more. So this was a little bit of refinement here, and that was one of the things that helped to make the difference. So this was the winning attempt, that's what you're watching at the moment. And it basically means that muscle memory, for me at least, definitely was a thing. And honestly, it was even more of a thing than I thought. I thought surely it's going to take me at least, again, 3 or 4 hours at the very least to get this done. But it was maybe about 90 minutes of recording, which, again, goes to show that I'm far from an expert at this game. It still took me 90 minutes to defeat Malenia, even though I've done it once before. But the fact that I'd taken so much time away from the game and literally came in not even remembering the buttons properly, to be able to beat her in 90 minutes, I think for me was surprising. I didn't really think that that was going to happen. So yeah, for anyone curious about, is muscle memory a thing? Is it like riding a bike when you play Elden Ring? Based on my own experience, I would say yes. So it was really fun to test this. I've been curious about it for so long. But I think I can safely say that based on my experiences, muscle memory is a thing, thankfully. So yeah, it was definitely fun to go back and beat Malenia a second time. Now, this attempt ended up being interesting because it did rely pretty heavily on RNG. I'm not going to lie. You've seen, I think, at this stage clearly that it was only a matter of time before I won. But in the second form in particular, I got some really, really nice RNG. So I'll show you guys that as well. Just trying to be patient here. I've got 7 Crimson Flasks still. That's a good number. I want to make sure I go into the second form with as much of the Cerulean and Crimson Flasks as I can. So I just need to land 1 hit here. Now, watch this second form. Is very interesting and a lot of RNG. So remember me saying that this particular build is very well suited for this particular attack because I can do this, and I can string it together 3 or 4 times here. So I managed to get plenty of these in, and that knocked her down as well, gave me some time to heal up and prepare. That also hit her, which was a little bit lucky. She landed just about in there. Another big charge up move, very slow, gave me a chance to attack. Knocked her down with that, and another one on top. Like, this was completely just like doing a ton of damage. Then she used this move a second time, so this was where the really good RNG kicked in here. She gave me another free chance to do big damage. And so this was like, yeah, this is the attempt. I have to beat her this time, surely. When the good RNG comes around, you have to make use of it. She took another hit there that she could have avoided, and then she did this one again. This was insane. Seeing it 3 times in such a short space of time almost never happens. So this was pretty mega RNG. I'm going to be the first to admit that. But I'm hoping that what you've seen so far kind of proves that even on an RNG run that was half as good as this, maybe in another 10 attempts or something, 10, 15 attempts, I would have got there still. Because I was getting closer and closer. Especially with the extra Cerulean Flask and the lower FP cost, I could have spammed Taker's Flame a lot more than I did in the previous attempts. So I was definitely confident I could get her with this particular setup. So just being patient here for the final blows, trying not to do anything really stupid. Stay healed up. Thankfully I got that. Now I needed to survive this. That was slightly clutch because I took the full force of the first one, but I survived Flurry 2 and 3, and thanks to that, I managed to get it done. So yeah, that second form was extremely favourable, but I did get it done, and I beat Malenia in 24 attempts after taking a year away from the game and having only defeated her once before without summons in my time playing Elden Ring. So yes, hopefully this has proved that Elden Ring, even in the hardest boss battles, is a little bit like riding a bike. If you've managed to do it once before, you should be able to come back and do it again, even if you are very rusty and haven't played the game for a long time.